Last week I saw a photo that went kind of viral. It was of a man and he was fresh off of his shift at a coal mine and he was still covered in soot. He was taking his son to a basketball game and apparently, as the story goes, his shift was supposed to end at 4, but instead he had to go until 5 and the game started at 6 and he had promised to take his son to the basketball game. So rather than cleaning up, he just showed up on the court side covered in soot. Now, the photo spread all over social media, but the article that I read sort of twisted it. It was questioning the man's integrity, calling him a performative male, kind of a virtue signaling of his masculinity. And clearly, the article was kind of a clickbait thing because I think most of the comments I saw were heartwarming and could see his sort of self-sacrificing and his presence. But it got me thinking, like, here's this guy showing up tired, dirty, and proud, and still somebody found a way to call it fake. Somebody found a way to criticize his masculinity. And it got me thinking, like, no matter what a man does, someone's always going to criticize it. Welcome to the Nice Guy Show. I'm Chuck Chapman. I'm here with my co-host, Art Graff and Faisal Corker. And today we're going to get into something that I think a lot of men feel, and that is how masculinity seems to get criticized way more often than it gets praised. Are we living in a time where it's just kind of dangerous to be a man? So today we're asking the question, why is masculinity so often criticized rather than praised? Everywhere you look, it feels like being a man comes with judgment. So let's unpack that. So what do you guys think? Do you think that masculinity, it's often portrayed as a problem in our culture instead of something valuable? And Ari, let's start with you.
Yes. I do think it's often portrayed as a problem. I think, there's a crisis of boys and men right now, um, and I think, like there's been all this attention on women and girls because historically they were at a disadvantage, and there needed to be progress made on women's rights and teaching girls that they could do basically what they wanted, but at the same time boys have been, maybe I'm getting off topic, I don't know, but boys have been kind of neglected, and I guess to bring it back to the topic, I think that nobody wants to say that men or boys need help right now, which is a problem, because there's this perception that males have always been privileged. So that's one of the problems that I see, is that we can't sort of like give men the attention that they need right now. Did I just take us on a tangent?
No, but I mean, I think what you're saying is true. Is that men are being sort of portrayed as, like there's a crisis, I think, with boys and a crisis within men that it's okay to be a man. That it's actually kind of good to be a man. And that it's not necessarily privilege. I mean, a guy showing up in his, soot-covered face, who's just spent a 12-hour shift in a coal mine, that guy's not privileged. He's not a privileged white guy. He's a regular guy who's just struggling, trying to make ends meet and try to have, have a family and take his son to the basketball game. And yet he's still criticized because people are like, what, you didn't have time to wash your face? And so this is some sort of like performative gesture on his part to say, hey, look at me, I'm a good man, like I work in the coal mine and that kind of thing. And it just got me thinking, like, yeah, you can't really even do anything without getting criticized.
Well,
What about you, Faisal? What do you think?
Yeah, some people are fucking miserable and they'll criticize anything and everything because they have an internal shit that's going on, which they're spitting out what's inside of them rather than what's actually out there. So you are going to find those miserable people. The algorithm loves those people, right? And that's it. The world, the drama loves that, and the algorithms love those people, and they're one who get attention. So as you were saying, criticizing them, of course, you can save somebody, you can save 12 kittens from a tree and the burning building and the kids, and someone's going, fuck's sake, why did it
We
take
have
so
too many
long to do
kittens.
that? Yeah, why isn't he in the other town?
Why do we waste
saving
our
them?
tax resources on saving
Yeah.
kittens when we haven't?
So
Yeah, totally.
you're always going to have people who are going to be complaining, moaning, and bitching, right? So you're always going to get that, and they squeaky wheel, gets the algorithms going.
But
When
don't
it
you
comes
think that
to
like masculinity though is criticized maybe
yes,
more often
okay, so
than
here's
saving kittens?
here's yes, yes. So let's have a look at destruction. So let's have a look at how war is done, both in the energetic sense, and I'm not talking about gender here. I'm talking about destruction. How does the masculine energy destroy, and how does the feminine energy destroy? Now, looking at statistics and looking at observation of, say, school kids as well, and this again is backed up by when you see how children behave. The masculine energy destroys physically, and we can see that it'll destroy buildings, people, war, things like that. So there's a physical destruction there. And again, that's the masculine energy. I'm not saying men or women. Now, when you look at the feminine, how does a feminine destroy? It destroys through emotional campaign. It destroys through, intellectual war. That's how the feminine will destroy. So when you have angry feminists, when you have angry women who cannot physically destroy the masculine, but they'll destroy through reputation. They will destroy trying to degrade men, character assassination. I'm not saying that only women do this. I'm saying that men and women do this. I'm saying that the chosen preference of more feminine energy shows up more in women. So therefore, that's the way they will destroy. They will destroy men and women. So when a woman's scorned woman, right, she will destroy his reputation or her reputation, character assassinate through gossip, through lies, fabrication. So that's how the feminine will destroy it. And then if you look at school kids, I remember when my older son, he got into a fight. There's a fist fight, and then next thing you know, it's all over and done with. Then a friend of mine was telling me, he said, my daughter, she's getting bullied. And he says the women, the girls are vicious. And it's like they're slowly poisoning her. They're slowly sending constant messages. There's like a different strategy used by the girls. And then you look at the school boys, there's a different strategy. They fight, done, shake hands, done. And you even see that on videos. Guys will fight, shake hands. I know guys who've just fought, shake hands, and then be done with it. So there's a different destruction. So right now, masculinity feels like it's under crisis. Another thing I want to highlight is, sometimes we over exaggerate, and the challenge, because masculinity is facing crisis. So is femininity. So we've always had crisis, but now we're gonna over exaggerating it. That was my spiel.
Yeah, I think that a thing that sort of strikes.
Nice Yiddish there. Yeah.
It's because he's dating a Jewish girl, so he's starting to pick that up. I think the thing that for me is especially like growing up, and I'm a little ahead of you guys in years, and so kind of growing up in the midst of sort of the feminist movement and post Vietnam, that I always felt like there was this sense of like it's bad to be a man. And I think a lot of nice guys get this early on, and the message may not be it's bad to be a man, but they do get the message, or they have some kind of point in life in which they go, I don't want to be like my dad. And the dad is the representative of masculine. And then I think that sort of gets portrayed in the media. And I just remember growing up as a young man and feeling guilty for being a man, or feeling like, I can't, as a white man, as a privileged white man, like I can't have an opinion, I can't say like, oh, masculinity is under crisis, or that there's, that there's this part of me that's sort of stifled because of, oh, well, you're just a man and you're going to be speaking, sort of masculine rhetoric, and your job is to keep us repressed and all of that kind of stuff. And I could feel that. And I'm wondering, have you guys ever felt like it's bad to be a man, or like you've got to hide this part of yourself? And I think actually for myself that when I read No More Mr. Nice Guy, it was one of the first times where I kind of got this idea like, hey, maybe it's not so bad to be a man. Maybe being a man is okay. Did you guys ever feel that?
Yeah, I mean, I went to a pretty liberal university. I took a women's studies course, so that really kind of opened my eyes to institutional oppression, and made me question sort of my participation in that. And my grad school, was very progressive. So I think that I came to question, everything about being a traditional man, which didn't help because I was such a nice guy also. So it's really only been in the last few years and discovering No More Mr. Nice Guy and men's work that I've begun to see, there's a middle ground where you can, recognize the important gains of feminism and women's rights, but also appreciate the natural gifts that men have and masculinity. It's not one or the other. But so much of our culture is just, you're either pro-feminist and woke, or you're toxic. There's nothing really in the middle. Even though I think most people are in the middle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I was just thinking about when I was growing up. So coming from a South Asian culture, and if you look at some countries like Pakistan, India, a boy is celebrated in a family. And in some cultures, if you're born as a girl, it's shame on the family, which is really sad. And in some cultures, they would get rid of the baby girl, because she would be a burden on the family. So when I grew up, we didn't have social media. We just had a black and white TV that occasionally worked. So we didn't have all that retro, the kind of like the messaging of like man is bad. And the messaging I kind of saw was like men were really important in society and in the family. So the only thing that started to change for me was when I was raised more by women, and men were out doing their, going out to work, and I did hear women gossiping about men and, oh, he's this or he's that, and I started hearing a lot of negative messages about, a lot of complaints about the guys. And then when I moved to the UK, I noticed that there was a real kind of like campaign against men, and it started to really flourish when social media came out. There was a real lot of man-hating voices being spoken on social media, and again, I kind of like bought into the women-hating speeches as well. I bought into that because I felt like, I'm pissed off that there's such an attack on masculinity, and how dare they forget the fact that women are beautiful and sweet and angelic. Actually, that's not my experience. And my experience is that there are some really amazing women, but there are also very toxic, horrible women who have been very nasty, very cruel. And those guys were, we had the both sides. The masculine guys are saying there's a lot of horrible women, and you had the women saying there's a lot of horrible men, but there was no integrated view. Everybody had just one or the other side. So I had, going through my own pain, going through my own divorce, I bought what the guys were saying, and then I realized that actually that's quite a split view. So now I'm looking at, actually there's some goodness in men, there's some goodness in women. So I'm trying to eradicate when I have a very strong bias towards that. And social media doesn't help. It just it's evil.
Well, and I think that's the thing, and maybe kind of where this topic sort of hit home for me was how we're just, as a society and as a culture, we're just very, very critical. We're critical of masculinity, critical of femininity, we're critical of humanity, we're critical of everything. And it's all of this negativity that starts to show up. And then, you start feeling like, sort of a sense of hopelessness. And I think that can happen with a lot of guys, where you start to feel this sense of hopelessness of, I'm trying to be a good man, showing up at a basketball game with my son, and then all of a sudden I get criticized. I mean, this guy obviously had no intent. It wasn't him that took the photo and posted it on social media, it's just a guy showing up. And yet that's the thing that sort of happens in today's world is you can just show up as yourself, and all of a sudden you find yourself in the midst of a controversy and being criticized for just being who you are. And that doesn't feel good, and that doesn't feel safe. And, I was thinking even moments of time in our life where maybe we hold back because we're afraid of our masculinity. How many times have either you personally held back or maybe seen somebody else that holds back? Faisal, you were just telling us off camera about something going on in your life that was where you had to kind of step up and be more assertive and more masculine, just as a way to protect the people that you love. And I think that that's something that, the shadow side of this is that I'm afraid of showing up and being a man or being assertive or whatever, because I'm going to get canceled.
Speaking up
simply for just being me.
Yeah. And I think when you were talking, I was realizing, where have I shied away? Where have I just not spoke up about having an opinion? And I noticed that anytime before there was a topic of men, masculinity, or what I felt, I was afraid of just being easily labeled of, oh, you're such a, women hating person, or you are such a, what's the word, when you hate women?
Misogynist.
That's the word. Yeah. See how much I'm getting rid of all these words. But yeah, sort of misogynist or something like that. So even speaking up, even having an opinion, you have to be really careful, because that's a lot of people are getting that programming of I don't like this, but I better not say this because it's not the right thing to do. And you could come across as, somebody who's a misogynist, or you could come across as a very ignorant person. So have you ever found that where you just held back your opinions and your thoughts because you didn't want to be shamed for being a man?
Yeah, I think we do that quite a bit. And I guess it's just kind of feels like it's getting maybe a little bit more intense these days, where it's much easier to just stay silent than to have an opinion. And I think that's kind of a tragedy of the entire technology and the advances that we have. And wouldn't it be great if we could celebrate masculinity and celebrate femininity and celebrate feminism, celebrate humanity, rather than see the negative in everything. And maybe that's just not possible because humans are instinctually, driven towards, survival, and survival is I'm on top. If I'm on top of the food chain, then I can't be hurt. And yet I think as humans, we have an ability to override our instinctual processes and to be more thoughtful. And yeah. What about you, Ari? Have you ever like held back someplace, like thinking like, oh, I don't want to be judged or feel like, somebody might think I'm a toxic man or have toxic masculinity if I stand up or
Look
say
at him.
something?
Look at his beard. Does he look like a guy with hold back? Look at him. It's like the
He looks like, yeah.
tough.
If it was just easy, if it was only as easy as just having a great beard. No, I mean, I think as a psychologist, I've held back sort of kind of letting people know what I do a little bit, or feeling like I have to mold it in a way that is going to be, it's going to feel comfortable to people. That, oh, I work with men, and I help them develop a positive masculinity, which I don't think is a toxic mission at all. But it is something where,
do you get people saying it's a toxic? Do you get a lot of slack for it?
not a lot, but I do get questions.
From
Probably less so from professionals, but even women that I date. If I say, I'm focused on working with men, I've got a podcast, or around men's issues, it like raises red flags for some women, like, oh, he must be like Andrew Tate, or if yeah, I remember even talking to like an ex-girlfriend from high school and trying to explain to her what I do, and talking about things like polarity. Like, I think, um, and men leading in a relationship. I feel like I have to be careful about how I talk about that, because it can be construed as, that women are supposed to be submissive and are not capable of being leaders. And that's not actually what I mean. I mean, I think women can be great leaders. But I always feel like I have to add that caveat. So like feel like I have to be careful about the type of describing the type of work that I do with men. Um, so those are some of the ways that it comes up.
So if you guys were in that position where the guy's getting a lot of slack from, just come to the baseball game as he was, how would you have handled that? So that was you, this picture of you posted.
Well, and I don't know how this guy handled it. I didn't go that far into the research, but he looks like a kind of guy that would just be like, I don't give a shit what you think about me. He just looks like, which is probably a healthy way of looking at it. But yeah, I think that there is a point in which you just have to say, look, I'm a dude. I like dude things. I'm here to be, here with my son and all that kind of stuff. And y'all can take your criticism and your toxic energy and just, go away.
Shove
I
it up
think
your
that
ass.
that's a healthy version of it. I think also just kind of, like you can, like, okay, let's talk about it. This is an interesting conversation that maybe we can have. Why is it that we have to drag someone down who's just trying to be themselves? Whether it's a man or a woman or whatever. But I think especially in our culture, it's like, and again, maybe this is just my experience. As a man, I've felt like there's an attack on masculinity. There's an attack on having an opinion, having to be assertive in any kind of situation, being seen as somebody who is, mansplaining. Those are the kind of words and stuff that we talk about that are critical towards men, rather than like a positive thing of, mansplaining is not, that's a negative thing, right? And yet, is it? I mean, We're just trying to help people understand.
Yeah, I think that mansplaining, it can be sort of this term that gets thrown around that kind of disempowers the person it's directed towards. Like you don't get to have an opinion, so
Right.
it's just one of those terms, like I don't know if gaslighting is like that, or you're a narcissist.
Well, I think you hit it,
It's
Ari.
like,
I think that it's disempowering, that anytime, as a man, we feel empowered, someone is quick to say, and to try to disempower it, because we see power or masculine power as dangerous, you know. So it makes sense in a way that, we might feel disempowered by things. And then I think there's, the flip side of that would be people saying, well, that's because, as men, we've done all of this damage, and that all of the, the damage and the things that are going on in the world and the repression and the suffering, that's all stems from that toxic masculine energy. And so now we have to apologize for that. I've seen a lot of sort of like men's leaders recently talking about taking responsibility for the past mistakes of the men in the world who have, been toxic.
How do you feel about that? I think what a lot of bullshit.
You apparently have an opinion. The way that
I know,
like your face was like, what the
fuck? No way am I going to apologize for what other guys have done. And I think that's such a you're taking on guilt and shame from other people's behaviors. And that man explaining thing, I saw I think it was an MP or something, and the woman, this other MP, she said, "Oh, you're man explaining right now." And I think that women who weaponize the fact that you're doing something as a guy is just need for power and control. And I've been in situations when women have tried to disempower me, or even guys who are feminized men try to say, "Oh, that's just man explaining." I'm like, yeah, I'm a man who's trying to explain something. Like a woman might be emotional planning. That's what I was just making up. I was like, well, you're explaining your emotions, or you're expressing your emotions. So don't interrupt me and let me finish, because I've really fucking owned my masculinity. I've so proud of being a man, because I know that when you become an integrated individual, you're going to have your dark side and you're going to have your light side. And there's parts of me that are super wonderful as a man. There's part of me that isn't, just like you, just like everybody else. And I remember I was posting a lot of controversial things on Facebook. And one of the things I was practicing was being okay by being disliked, being okay by being criticized, ridiculed, and just having really harsh things said to me. And I've deleted a lot of them because I'm past that stage, but that was my training ground. I used to put a lot of controversial things on there, and people used to just, like, especially the women, would just dive in and just say horrible things, right? Real nasty things. And you're thinking about it, you're telling me I'm nasty, but yet your comments are nasty. So it's like, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. So, but what I learned was people are always going to be horrible. As a man, as an individual man or woman, you really have to develop a thick skin. It's for you to own yourself and own your flaws. When people have said to me, well, Faisal, you can be really controlling, you can be narcissistic, you can be this, whatever. I'm like, yeah, I can be, because that's human nature. And I'm never going to show up perfect. So when I own my faults, I own my power. And I think that's such an important lesson, especially with the guys who are going, oh my God, us men, we've been criticized, we've been victimized. Stand up. Stand up. Just like the women have stood up, stand up as well. And there's going to be lots of men and women hating on each other. Right? So just silence that and just show and lead by example. And it's a rough journey to get there, right? It's a rite of passage for men and women to really go beyond that.
Excellent mansplaining.
Thank you. I'm proud of that.
What about you, Ari? What do you think? You got thoughts on that?
I think, yeah, I think that nobody wins when men
Yeah.
feel disempowered. I think that's part of the crisis right now, is that men feel disempowered, and any attempt to take power back, we feel like we're going to get shot down. So I think that's contributing to um, a lot of cynicism and discouragement among men, and probably some uh, women hating as a result. Because I think a lot of men who feel like they can't win
Mhm.
in our culture.
Right.
So I think we have to give them avenues where they can feel empowered. I mean, I think that's part of the work that we're doing, that empowering men is not coming at women's expense.
Mhm.
And it really is a way that ends up supporting women and leads to better relationships with women. So, that's why I feel good about the work that I'm doing. But I also feel like I have to explain it to people.
Yeah.
My
So
I think.
my nephew, he says something really interesting about, and it kind of jolted me a little bit, because I remember with Dr. Glover when he was writing the Mr. Nice Guy book, and somebody pointed out, well, you really hate women. And he then just took a pause and just did some work and around that. And there was some in my own communication where it was coming up as I do hate women, and in my communication, and I had to really have a check-in with myself. And I was really called out a few times in that. And I thought, okay, you know what? I do have a bias in there. And then I just started to do some more work around this. But something my nephew said, he said, you know that hating men and hating women is so school ground
Mhm.
childish behavior.
Mm.
And I was like, this 14-year-old just
Right.
nailed it.
Right.
That's what it is. It's just school ground, behavior. And I was like, I feel a bit embarrassed about my own kind of like behavior in that way. And I thought, okay, rather take that embarrassment, take it to heart. Let's just use that, prop that to really learn from that. And then where else am I behaving like a school kid as well? Man, if somebody else is behaving like a school kid, do I really need to explain myself to them?
Right. No, I think it's a great point. Like we need to spend more time building each other up rather than tearing each other down. And I think that is only going to come when we are able to feel empowered to actually love the people around us in a way that creates more connection. Because I think that the negativity and the complaining and the criticizing really separates us, and it creates a bigger divide. It creates a bigger divide in terms of, the right, the left, the black, the white, the masculine, the feminine. It just creates more of a divide. And I think my dream, my hope, my thing would be that we're able to connect with each other as humans. So here's the last question. What do you think is going to be the biggest complaint about this podcast and this topic?
it'll be about Faisal.
It will be
Yeah,
about Faisal, actually.
it's
Yeah.
like it's the wrong color shirt, the lighting's off, my haircut's too thing, and
Yeah.
he's speaking. Right, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I can handle it. I can handle all the criticism. Can you?
I mean, what kind of complaints have we gotten? Have we gotten much hate about the podcast?
I don't think we've gotten a lot. I haven't looked at the comments for a bit, but I think, well, you know, maybe your audiences were preaching to the choir, kind of thing, and the women haven't found us yet. I don't know.
Oh, we did have that podcast, didn't we, where the walk away wife syndrome, where we did have some angry comments on that. I mean, how do you guys feel when you do get angry comments at you or criticism? Do you take it to heart? Are you like, okay, cool, people have expressed that, and then just overcome it? I mean, like, have you done work on this, or before would you have been crippled, taken it to heart, cry in the corner? What?
I think, I mean, I think that's the whole thing about learning to love yourself and build yourself up, is so that you don't collapse in the midst of some type of criticism or a complaint, that you can just be able to kind of like hear it, understand it, maybe learn from it if there's something to learn from it. And then on the flip side of that, be able to like let go of it, so that you're not collapsed.
And this is, how about you?
I'm sensitive to the trolls, but I have not been trolled very much. So,
All right, guys, what's your YouTube channel? So, guys, we'll send all the trolls.
Go to Ari's web and just troll the hell out of
yeah,
him.
go to his YouTube. Start. First of all, criticize his beard. Don't criticize.
Don't forget to like and subscribe after you troll.
They're your greatest fans, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
They are. I mean, that's a good point, actually. That, like Biggie said, that you're nobody till somebody hates you.
Yeah. There's no difference between someone who loves you and hates you. It's the same obsession that they have. So I want to just highlight. So what causes all of these? People to get really angry, really complain, really get divided. So what's triggering within us that we have to hate men, we have to hate women, we have to hate black, we have to hate white, we have to hate different color, religions? So what is it that do you think that's happening within us?
Well, I think from a very sort of primal biological level, anytime, our brain, that primal brain is always seeking threat. And I think when it sees something that's different than you, it sort of interprets that as a threat, or at least a possibility of a threat. So, if you're a black African who lives in a tribe and you've never seen a white man before, and all of a sudden a white man pops up, you're going to be like, what's going on here? This might be a threat. That's the natural instinctual kind of thing. But like I said, I think we have the ability to override our natural instincts. And rather than say, oh, this person is a threat because they're different than me, but try to really see and understand the similarities, and to understand, like, we're all human. We're all trying to, just get along and be in life. I also think that, the bigger we get, like I think as humans, we're, once you get beyond a tribe of, 100 people, that starts to, create some chaos. And I think, like, with the internet, we're no longer, especially with the speed of the internet, we're no longer waiting for information. And so instantaneous information. And so if you've got the focus on a particular people, whether that's conservatives, whites, blacks, gays, straights, whatever, it starts to create this divide. And I think that that there is it's all about the money. It's all about the dollars, right? So if I can get eyes on me by creating controversy, then that's more money for me. And ultimately, I think that tends to sort of be the driver, rather than like being able to kind of step back and say, like, what is it we're actually doing here? And is this good? And sometimes this stuff, maybe the machine's just too big right now. Maybe it's just,
Well, that's how Andrew Tate got so huge, because if you observe Andrew Tate, he's a marketing genius. And what he did was I think one of his interviews, he said he knows that women are going to be triggered by his comments. And he says, the more I say those comments, the more my popularity grows. Yeah. So the more controversial, the more polarizing you are, the more you're going to be affected. If you're like, if you're like a nice guys, and nice guys, they want to be, liked by all. So if you want to be liked by all, you're never going to be loved by all. Yeah, you're not going to be. You're going to be. Actually, if you're liked by all, you're never going to be loved by anyone, because you're just trying to please everybody else. There's no going to be a strong divide of I really like this person or I really hate this person. So it's like real polarizing. And I think you're right as well, because evolutionary wise, we're very tribal people. So we're very territorial. The ego is very territorial. So it's like, this is mine, this is ours, and anything else or anything opposing to it. So there's a real split. I noticed that as well. There's like an ego would say, I hate this or I love this. There's no very hard to have at a primal stage is to have an integration. And I think that's when we've started to evolve. We started to integrate and start accepting and seeing things. I remember even my neighbors. So we had very racist neighbors, and they just hated black or brown or anyone outside. And over time, they were a few doors away. I just started to build a connection with them. And eventually when I started to nourish that connection, build that connection, it was amazing. That divide just completely went. And they were like on my side. I had some problems with the cars. These guys knew how to fix the cars. And I was like, guys, can you just help me out? And they're like, yeah, sure, no worries. And it was amazing how you could get rid of that divide by just building that connection and understanding. And that's what was missing.
Yeah.
Well, in our online era, people are not spending time getting to know the other side. Like if you're a liberal, you're not taking time to get to know the MAGA Trump supporters and vice versa. So when you're online or when you're on social media, it's very easy to just to just put yourself in your own world and your own silo and not get to know the other group. So I think that's one of the issues today. And then, we're constantly bombarded by social media posts kind of promoting our in-group or what we like. So I think that one of the things kind of promoting this issue is just the victim mindset. Like I think we all are capable of falling into that, but social media really invites that. It invites you to feel like you've been traumatized or oppressed in some way, that you're the victim of something, and not to look at yourself.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, if we go back to the original question, is it bad to be a man? The answer is, it's not bad to be a man. It's not bad to be a woman. It's not bad to be anything other than human, because, and if I had a intention for this podcast, it would not be to win the game of, it's good to be a man or it's good to be a woman or any of those things. My intention would be that we learn to see the positives in each other and build each other up and try to create connections, just like Faisal, you were saying with your neighbor, because you can either look at that and go, oh, this guy's racist, therefore I'm going to, do things to him or say things about him or talk behind his back and that kind of things. Or you can go and create connection, and I think that that's the higher level of humanity that we should be striving for. So,
Nice
anyway,
Guy
guys,
Show. We're here to save humanity. I think
we're here to
that's
save humanity. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks again for being part of the Nice Guy Show. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and share it with a friend. If you're watching this, or you're rather listening to this on one of your favorite podcast platforms, give us a thumbs up. Help promote us. It helps get the word out. And be sure to go to niceguyshow.com, where you can find out information about the three of us if you want to get a hold of one of us. And if you want to make comments on this podcast, make sure they're positive. No negative comments, please. Thank you. No.
Ari can't take it.
Ari can't take it. Yeah. But if you like this podcast, go way back to podcast number 10, where it was just me and Faisal, and we were talking about the dead bedroom syndrome. Yeah, it's either 10 or 11. I can't remember, but it's one of those two. So go back and go check it out. It's a good one. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us on the Nice Guy Show. I'm Chuck. I'm here with Faisal and Ari. And go be good men or women.